Disney has a new Lightning Lane system, and you have questions. A lot of questions. Well, I have answers. Hi, I'm James from Guide to WDW. In case you missed it, Disney World is replacing Genie Plus with Lightning Lane Multipass, which will completely change how we skip the line for the best rides. The biggest difference is that the new system features advanced reservations, and different rules for Disney Resort guests and off-site guests. Over the last couple of weeks, I've released a few videos about the new Lightning Lane, both here on YouTube and also on Instagram and TikTok. And y'all have commented with so many great questions, basically asking, what the Fantasmic is going on with this? So I'm gonna uphold my sacred duty as a self-appointed Disney expert on the internet and tell you everything that you want to know about Lightning Lane by answering over 20 of your biggest questions. These questions range from basic rules that Disney didn't make very clear to very specific cases like how split stays work, or what it's gonna be like if you're going to Disney World when the system goes online. I would have more to say in this intro, but I got you a Lightning Lane to skip this part and get straight to the good stuff. Let's dive in. First, is this a WDW exclusive change or Disneyland 2? Nice Boss Nass avatar, by the way. I got a few of these questions about how these changes affect Disneyland, and the answer is really not at all. At Disneyland, the only thing that's changing is the name. Disneyland's Lightning Lane Multipass will work just like Genie Plus does now, only same-day reservations that open as soon as you enter the park. It will also still include PhotoPass. When Genie Plus debuted in 2021, it was really similar at Disney World and Disneyland, with just a few small differences here and there. Now Lightning Lane Multipass is really different between the parks. Disney released this chart showing all the differences between Anaheim and Orlando, and yeah, that's a lot. So basically, Disney World gets all the new rules along with the new name, while Disneyland just gets the new branding. Another common question I got was about the virtual queue. Melly Dog on YouTube asks, can you join the virtual queue in advance now? Other viewers asked if you can only purchase Guardians and Tron, and if the virtual queue is gone now. I even got a comment on my virtual queue masterclass saying it was already out of date because Genie Plus is going away. To answer all these simply, nothing is changing with virtual queue. My virtual queue video is thankfully still relevant even after July 24th. My Genie Plus video, on the other hand, good night, sweet prince. Honestly, I think this is a pretty easy thing to get confused about. Virtual queue has nothing to do with Lightning Lane. They are two completely separate systems, two different lines with two different sets of rules. If a ride offers a virtual queue, they have a virtual queue line which is free to join, and they also have a Lightning Lane line where you can pay to guarantee a bit of a shorter wait. So these changes to Lightning Lane do not affect virtual queue at all. Virtual queue is still all same day, still free, and you can get both a virtual queue and a Lightning Lane for the same attraction in the same day. On TikTok, KK asks, can you purchase a Lightning Lane single pass without purchasing multipass? This is a great question because it gets to another common thing that guests can easily get confused about, which is how Lightning Lane Multipass and Single Pass affect each other. So Lightning Lane Multipass is the replacement for Genie Plus, where you make reservations from a pool of dozens of rides, and Lightning Lane Single Pass replaces individual Lightning Lane, where you make a single per ride purchase just for the 5 biggest rides at the parks. Even though they are both called Lightning Lane, they are pretty separate systems, just like Genie and individual Lightning Lane. So the way that it works is the same. There's no overlap between single pass rides and multi-pass rides, and you can buy a single pass without having to buy multi-pass, just like how you could buy an individual Lightning Lane without having to buy Genie Plus first. Tammy Hughes asks, can you hold a Lightning Lane single pass as well as 3 Lightning Lane multi-passes, or is it 3 total? Any idea? Unlike many other things in life, I actually do have an idea about this. Multi-pass has something I call the rule of 3. You can hold 3 Lightning Lane multi-pass reservations at one time, but you can also buy up to 2 Lightning Lane single pass rides per day. And having those single pass reservations do not affect your 3 Lightning Lane multi-pass slots at all, and vice versa. Like I said in the last question, single pass and multi-pass don't affect each other. So you can have up to 2 Lightning Lane single passes in addition to your 3 Lightning Lane multi-passes, making it possible to have up to 5 Lightning Lanes booked at one time. Aaron Mint asks, will you be able to book the same ride more than once? It works just like Genie Plus. You can only get in the Lightning Lane for a certain ride once per day. If you want to go on it again, you'll have to use the standby line or virtual queue. The next few questions all have to do with pre-booking. Who can book Lightning Lanes and when? It's a surprisingly complex topic, so there are quite a few questions. Let's start with Olivia Green, who asks, do I book 7 days prior to when I check into the hotel, or the day I will use my pass? If you're staying at a Disney resort, it's 7 days ahead of your check-in day. For off-site guests, it's 3 days ahead of when you use the pass. Jessica Kennedy asks, what about Good Neighbor hotels? Guests staying at those hotels are considered off-site for the purposes of Lightning Lane, and can only book 3 days ahead. The only non-Disney resorts that get that 7-day advanced privilege are the Swan, Dolphin, Swan Reserve, and Shades of Green. ZKD 5001 asks, do you know if the Swan and Dolphin are considered on-site properties? Hey, I just answered that. Yes, Swan, Dolphin, and Swan Reserve get the 7-day privilege. Sandra Burnett asks, if I am a pass holder but staying on Disney property, can I still make selections 7 days in advance? Yes, that's how the system should work. Normally, if you're not staying at a Disney resort, annual pass holders can only buy Lightning Lanes 3 days ahead of each day, and they can only make 1 day's worth of reservations at a time because of the park reservation rules. Staying at a resort gives your annual pass extra powers, so to speak. It's similar to the park reservation system, where an annual pass holder gets to make reservations for the length of their resort stay, in addition to the 3 to 5 days of reservations their pass typically has. So staying at a Disney resort should allow you to make Lightning Lane 7 days in advance for the entire duration of your stay. Here's a related question. MSYTS asks, if my tickets need reservations but I'm staying in a Disney resort, can I still book 7 days in advance? That should work just like annual passes. Staying at a Disney resort should give you that 7-day booking window no matter what ticket type you have for the length of your stay. Just be sure to have your park reservations booked before you try to buy your Lightning Lanes. Savvy Traveler asks, if we purchase the 4-day Magic Parks ticket, which is valid 7 days from the first park day, does this mean we can reserve our attractions for each of our 4 days at the same time, within 3 or 7 days prior to our first park day? This question highlights one of the biggest improvements and one of the biggest weaknesses of the new Lightning Lane system. First, the good stuff. If you're staying at a Disney resort, or if you're staying off-site and buy a ticket that doesn't need reservations, you can book your entire trip's worth of Lightning Lanes in one sitting. It will be separate transactions, but once it's 7 a.m. when Lightning Lanes become available to you, you'll be eligible to buy for any day of your trip, like how dining reservations work. So in the case of the 4 days Magic Parks ticket, because it doesn't need reservations no matter where you're staying, you could book all 4 days of your visit, either 7 days before check-in for resort guests, or 3 days before the first day of your ticket for off-site guests. Now here's the bad part. There is an exception to this. If you're staying off-site and have a ticket that needs reservations, like an annual pass or military discount ticket, you can only book 1 day's worth of Lightning Lanes at a time, starting 3 days ahead of each day. And that highlights one of the worst things about new Lightning Lane. There are a lot of unintuitive rules. You're gonna hear me repeatedly saying these rules in these videos, not because I just love how resort guests are eligible 7 days before check-in day sounds coming out of my mouth, but because there are a lot of rules and it's easy to get confused or miss something. Speaking of confusing rules, here's a very common yet surprisingly complicated question I got from a few people. How will Lightning Lane Multipass work with split stays? In case you don't know, a split stay is where you stay at 2 or more different resorts during your trip. Disney's official Plan Disney site describes getting Lightning Lanes for this pretty common guest practice as like heffalumps and woozle. Very confoozle. That's not a joke, that's a real quote. So let's break it down. Plan Disney lays it out for guests staying at multiple Disney resorts. If there's no gap between your Disney resort stays, then you can act like it's all a single stay. You can book up to 14 days of Lightning Lanes 7 days ahead of your first check-in day. If there's a gap between your stays, like you check out on a Wednesday on your first Disney resort stay, spend all of Thursday just wandering around Disney Springs aimlessly, and then check into your second resort on Friday, then you have to treat them like they are 2 different stays. You can book for all of the days on your first stay 7 days ahead of your first check-in day, and then you can book for all of the days on your second stay 7 days ahead of your second check-in day. Well, I guess up to 14 days for each if you're living that blank check lifestyle. Now, what if you're staying at both a Disney resort and an off-site resort? That's less clear. Based on how Disney described on-site split stays, here's my educated guess. You'll have 2 different days where you'll be able to start booking for the different parts of your trip. You can book 7 days ahead of your Disney resort stay, but only for your check-in day through your checkout day. And you can book 3 days ahead of your off-site stay for the rest of your trip. Which one comes first shouldn't really matter, but I'm sure that there will be some edge cases that might make this different depending on the timing. Like maybe 3 days ahead of your off-site stay is more than a week ahead of your Disney resort stay. I would think that you could book for every day of your ticket with that at the 3-day mark if you have a ticket that doesn't need reservations, but I am honestly not entirely sure. Like Disney said, very confusal. I'm not sure how common that situation would be, but I bet we'll learn a lot more as the system comes online. Finally, if you're doing an entirely off-site split stay, it doesn't matter in Disney's eyes. You can book 3 days ahead of your first day in the park. Taylor Lee SLP on Instagram asks, will the 3 chosen rides have a time window that you get to choose from like when purchasing Tron, or will it be the next open time slot? This is one of the big new differences. With Lightning Lane Multipass, you'll be able to pick from all available time windows, like how individual Lightning Lane works right now. This will be the case for advanced bookings, and it should be the case for same-day reservations according to Disney's Lightning Lane comparison chart. Grandy Tammy asks, can I book while I'm in Canada prior to my travel date? This is a bit of good news for our friends to the north. Disney updated its policy that said that you have to be physically inside the US in order to purchase Lightning Lanes to also include Canada. So if you're in the US or Canada, you're good to pre-book. Unfortunately, if you're outside those 2 countries, Disney doesn't have a way for you to buy Lightning Lane ahead of your trip. I have heard some commenters suggest using a VPN and GPS spoofer should work, but as a good boy rule follower, I would never officially recommend doing something like that to work around this very bad, terrible restriction that Disney definitely should have figured out before they rolled out the new Lightning Lane system. I'm just saying what I've heard. But the restrictions for international guests is only one of the ways that this rollout isn't going as smoothly as possible. The other has to do with guests who are visiting when the system comes online on July 24th. I've gotten a lot of very specific questions from guests staying that week. Like, we have 3 park days, July 23rd, 24th, and 25th. Since this starts on the 24th, how will this work for us? I'm visiting on the 20th through the 27th. What do I do? Or if I arrive on July 27th, can I make Lightning Lane reservations on the 24th or the 20th? Now, I'm making these comments anonymous because these viewers might not want their specific vacation dates broadcast out on my channel, but this is a really great question. I had assumed that because the new system was going online on the 24th, Disney would open reservations 7 days ahead on the 17th. But I was wrong. Everything starts on the 24th, both purchases and reservations. There are no purchases before the 24th. So any date up to July 23rd is still using Genie Plus. But then on the 24th, Lightning Lane Multipass and Single Pass becomes available. Here's everyone who can start purchasing Lightning Lanes at 7 a.m. on that day. All current guests, Disney Resort guests checking in between July 24th and July 31st, and off-site guests with tickets starting July 24th through July 27th. Best of luck to Disney servers that morning. So resort guests staying that week don't get the advanced booking advantage, and on the flip side, off-site guests are on the same footing. How you feel about that probably depends on where you're staying. But let's answer all of these viewer questions with an example of someone staying the 20th through the 27th. On the 20th through the 23rd, you're still using Genie Plus, waking up at 7 a.m. to make same-day reservations. At 7 a.m. on the 24th, you can now buy Lightning Lane Multipass and Single Pass for the rest of your trip, the 24th, the 25th, the 26th, and the 27th. Elizabeth Big 16 asks on Instagram, how does it work with park hopping? This is something I covered in my new Lightning Lane Explained video, but it's one of the most common questions I've received, so it's worth revisiting here. And it's a really good change. Previously with Genie Plus, to park hop you had to buy the multiple park option, in addition to having a park hopper ticket. With Multipass, the multiple park option is gone. If you have a park hopper ticket, then you can park hop with it. So before you go, you do have to pick one park where you can make up to 3 advance reservations. Advance reservations must all be in the same park. That park you select also determines how much you pay. Magic Kingdom will cost more than Animal Kingdom, for example. Then if you have a park hopper ticket, once you start making same-day selections, you can pick from any park. Park hopping is just built in. Same thing with Lightning Lane Single Pass. You can buy up to 2 of these passes per day, and they can be in different parks if you have a park hopper ticket. Riley Coran asks, do you think we'll be able to modify selections like we could with Genie Plus? Yes, Disney has confirmed that you can modify plans. However, we don't know the exact rules and implementation. I would bet it would be pretty similar to Genie Plus, where you can change a reservation to a different available time or change it to a different attraction. Right now, with Genie Plus, all modifications must be within the same park. And to change that lightning lane to a different park, you have to cancel the reservation first. That's something to look out for to see if it works the same or differently. Now, something else that is confirmed is that you can modify which park you pick for your advanced reservations. There is a hitch with that, which I'll get into with the next question. Lisa Ortlano asks, will I be able to get a refund if my plans change? No, Lightning Lane is non-refundable, both single pass and multi-pass. If your plans change, hopefully they only change to visiting a different park, since you can modify to change your first park of the day with multi-pass. However, you'll have to pay the difference if you're changing to a more expensive park. Like if you bought Epcot and then decided to go to Hollywood Studios instead that day, you'll have to pay a few dollars per person to adjust your Lightning Lane multi-pass reservations. But if you change to a cheaper park, too bad, you just paid extra for no reason, and Disney lost their wallet, so they can't give it back to you. And if it's still like individual Lightning Lane Single Pass cannot be modified or canceled at all. You only get a refund if the ride breaks down and you can't go on it. On TikTok, Sem Kopian asks, when can you book a new Lightning Lane? After you've been on your first lane or your third? Apologies for my pronunciation if I got your name wrong, Sem. This is one of the completely new rules for Lightning Lane Multipass. You can pre-book up to 3 rides, but unlike FastPass Plus, with the new system, you do not need to use all 3 of your pre-booked Lightning Lanes to make new same-day reservations. With Multipass, once you use your first, then you can make a new selection. The rule of 3 I talked about is basically that you have 3 refillable Lightning Lane slots. Once you use one, you can use that empty slot to book a new ride. Game On Reviews on YouTube asks, once you book one Tier 1 and use it, will you be able to book more Tier 1 on day of, or are all of your subsequent bookings going to be Tier 2? Tiers only apply to booking Lightning Lane Multipass ahead of time. Once you're in the park, tiers won't apply. So on the day of, you can book any available Lightning Lane, but the Tier 1 rides tend to be the ones that sell out the fastest. Mr. Stizzle asks, I would like to know if you can cancel your Lightning Lane to then book another. For example, can you cancel your 2 Tier 2 rides to then book 2 more Tier 1 rides after the park opens? This is a really good question and potentially a really good advanced strategy. Because tiers don't apply on the same day, and because of the rule of 3, you could theoretically cancel or modify your 2 Tier 2 reservations and change both of them to Tier 1 rides right at park opening, and start the day off with 3 Tier 1 rides booked. However, if people caught on to this, it would cause the Tier 1 rides that didn't sell out in advance to very quickly run out right after park opening. Much quicker than Genie Plus because you'd be making multiple reservations at once. It seems like it would be a pretty obvious hack that Disney either has an unstated rule to combat or will quickly patch out. Like maybe those advanced reservations must stay within their tier slot, and then only once you use them can you ignore the tiers. I honestly don't know right now, and I'm going to be looking carefully into techniques like this once the system comes online for my multi-pass masterclass. Hey, that rhymes. Be sure to get subscribed so you don't miss that video when it comes out. Finally, this may be the question that I got asked the most. How much does it cost? And the honest answer is we don't really know yet, but Disney did say that it will cost similarly to Genie Plus. So it will vary based on the day or on the park. And you can see the price ranges on screen right now when Future Me actually looks up the prices and edits it into the video. Thanks, Future Me. I do wonder if the price between the cheapest park and the most expensive park will be brought closer together, since buying the cheapest option doesn't lock you out of park hopping like Genie Plus did. But even as you look at that most expensive price, I wouldn't be surprised to see that price continue to gradually creep up. As a reminder, Genie Plus was $15 a day when it debuted in 2021, and now it can be almost $40 a day. I think we could see some record high prices come this holiday season. Okay, split stays, park hopping, modifications, is there anything else? Oh yeah, check out this video for more Disney World tips and advice, and have a great time. This has been James from Guide to WDW. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you real soon.